Hello folks, on December the 17th, patch 11.05, Siren's Isle will be releasing. With a complete new zone, there's plenty of content to be doing once it's launched. But for mount collectors, there's also a bit of new old content, with the introduction of what I suspect will be the first part of the War Within's expansion-wide meta achievement. It appears that, unlike Shadowlands and Dragonflight, where the meta was added in one of the last patches, Blizzard may be planning to roll it out in stages. And in 11.07, the first episode, You Shall Not Pass, will be launching. This achievement awards the Shadow of Doubt mount, a black recolor of the Shadowlands Mythic Plus mounts. The nice thing about this is that it enables us to get a bit of a head start, instead of having to guess what could be in it. While we will have to wait until the new patch launches to get into the new content parts of the achievement, there is a bunch of stuff that we can get started on right now. And in this video, I'll be running through all of those requirements, both existing and new. As part of the achievement, there are now zone-wide meta achievements for each of the existing zones, which collect together a compendium of existing achievements. But let's get started with the Isle of Dorn. Each of those zone achievements requires us to do the Zone Adventurer achievement, which requires us to get 10 rares from the zone. The easiest way to do these is with the add-on Rare Scanner, which will pop up an announcement whenever a rare is seen on your map. By default, this can be very noisy, as it will alert on everything in the game, so I personally recommend spending some time going through the settings and only enabling the rares and other items that you actually need. That way, instead of training yourself to just ignore the alerts, you can be sure that if one goes off, it is something that you will want to deal with. The other common achievement is the Treasures achievement. This requires you to loot every one of the one-time treasures in the zone. The good news is that in my experience, all of these treasures are up all of the time, and it usually takes you at most 15 to 20 minutes to do it in each zone. The easiest way to do them is to use the Handy Notes add-on with the Handy Notes War Within extension, which will show you the location of all of the treasures on your map. Now, I do hope that you've been doing the Theatre Troupe event, or you don't mind doing it, because this is a major feature of the Isle of Dorn achievement. We're Here All Night requires that you complete all of the plays in the theatre event. The event starts every hour on the hour, and the plays rotate. With only 5 plays, this isn't super hard to do, especially as those events rotate in exactly the same order as listed in the achievement. Chances are that if you've been doing this event every week, you already have this finished. The other achievement for this event, A Star of Dorn, requires you to unlock all of the available actor perks. These perks come from many quests, which unlock at certain renown levels with the Earthen, the final one unlocking at renown 21. If you haven't picked them up already, just go down to the theatre area and do any of the quests you find there. You can do them at any time. You don't need to wait for the event to be active. Now, you've probably seen the big hammer down in the engineering area in Dornagol, or if you haven't seen it, you'll have at least heard it. But have you tried what happens if you stand under it? Well, now you have a good reason to. Flat Earthen is the achievement for falling victim to an industrial accident in the centre of Dorn. And finally, the last achievement of this group is Rock to Sleep. This actually happens in the Ringing Deeps and requires you to travel around and visit some of the inert Earthen and read the little memorial plaque. The locations of these are included in Handy Note, but I'd suggest doing this, which takes at most maybe 10 minutes to do, at the same time as you do the Ringing Deeps achievements. You'll see why in a minute. Rage Against the Machine is a new achievement for the Ringing Deeps, and again it starts off by doing those Adventurer and Treasure achievements. You know the deal by now. It's not much, but its honest work requires you to complete the Awakening of the Machine event by getting all 20 waves in a single sitting. Thankfully, we are now mostly geared up that this is straightforward to do. Supersized Snuffling requires you to loot 100 odd globs of wax. You get those from digging up those little snuffling patches. If you've been doing the weekly quest for this, you'll probably already have it complete by now. But if not, I personally find that Hallowfall is the easiest area to farm those patches. The next achievements are best done together. along with the rock to sleep from the Isle of Dorn, as they basically all involve a tour of the Ringing Deep. Notable machines requires you to find a set of notes that are just lying on the ground all over the zone. A not so quick fix requires you to fix 6 broken earthen consoles. Again, handy notes will have you covered for the location of all of these, and doing them all will probably take you at most 30 minutes. The final Ringing Deeps achievement is To All the Slimes I Love. This basically requires you to find a bunch of critters and /love them. There's a really good post in Wowhead, which I will link below, with coordinates for all the various types of critters. I found that this list of coordinates combined with a target macro that's also included in those comments makes them all pretty easy to find. There are multiple of the same critter in each of their locations, and you can potentially just complete this along with those other achievements I mentioned a moment ago. Crystal Chronicles is the Hallowfall achievement, and yes, as you can guess, you've got to do the Adventurer and Treasure achievements to get started. The Missing Links is another tour type achievement. This time you're looking for Lynx pets to wilt/pet. Handy note can help with this, but one thing you should be aware of is that the lynxes that are in the area around the Spreading the Light event are only present when the big key flames are active. So if you can't find any of the lynxes over there, you may need to put some radiant essences into the key flames to get them to light up. Staying with the zone tour and Biblo Archivist requires you to find a bunch of lore books. These again are always up, and the handy notes is your ally with this one too. Meroldar Menace requires you to find a bunch of rocks lying around Meroldar and throw them at stuff and basically just be a bit of a vandal. If you've done the Orphanage World quest, you'll probably have already used the stone on a target. I'll again link to the Wowhead post with explanations of where to find the rocks and their various targets. One thing to be aware of is that once you pick the rock up, it severely restricts your movement, so it's worth spacing your target before you pick the rock to make it a lot easier to do. Staying on the subject of the Orphanage World quest, this is needed for Children's Entertainer. This one is a bit annoying to do because you can only do 4 of the objectives each time the world quest is up, and that world quest seemed to only appear occasionally and very randomly. The hardest of the achievement to do is the Floor is Undersea, which is basically a bit of a jumping puzzle. There's also a few achievements which are related to Spreading the Light. But the good news is that if you've been doing the event, you'll probably have either finished or be close to finishing many of these. Beacon of Hope requires you to do all of the daily quests from the little key flames. Now, each key flame has 3 to 4 different quests, but they do rotate in order as you do them. But each key flame will only give you 1 quest per week, so this can take up to 4 weeks to complete. Sharing the Light just requires you to complete each of the main bonus events in the area at least once. And Igniting the Key Flames requires you to contribute 100 Radiance Remnants to those key flames. Just completing that Beacon of Hope will get you quite a long way into completing this, but unlocking the big key flames when they're not available can also help to complete it a lot more quickly. Lost and Found requires you to complete quests offered by Mera Ashlid. The way this works is that it's time gated over 3 weeks. Basically, she'll give you a quest every week to get 3 items. Those 3 items then give you hand-in quests. I will link to the Wowhead guide down below for where you can find everything and where to hand it all in. Right, moving on to Azj-Kahet. And yes, again, you're going to start off by doing those Adventurer and Treasure achievements. You Can't Hang With Us requires you to get kicked out of the City of Threads. Just go near one of the guards with True Sight, and after a minute or so, another NPC called a Surika Eradicator will show up and start casting a stacking debuff on you. Let that stack up to 10 and you'll get webbed and kicked out. Now, if you've already bought the Queen's Pheromones without having completed this achievement, that's not a major issue. Just go up to one of the big guards and attack it to get it to pay attention to you, and you'll get kicked out eventually anyway. The Unseeming requires you to get to 100 stacks of Unseeming Shift in the bottom area of the zone, which is called the Maddening Deeps. The easiest way to do this is to stand in one of the blood pools in the area, but do be aware that this does do damage, so if you're not attacked, you may need to step out and heal up. But don't worry, the stacks do not drop off until you leave the area completely, So it's perfectly okay to step out, just take a little bit of breather, and then step back in to get those stacks to stack up. Worm Theory requires you to do the world quests in either the Worm Tunnels or the settlement of Rak-Ush. This is subject to a lot of RNG, but basically you just watch for the 3 quests listed in the achievement being up and do them when you can. New quests in Azj-Kahet spawn every 3 days, but you do need to unlock the weekly Severed Threads pack in order to see those world quests. Itsy Bitsy Spider requires you to find the little named Weave Rat spiders. Now, in my experience, the majority of these tend to hang about the Weaver's lair, so just having a little target macro can usually find out where they are fairly quickly. The one exception is the Scampering Weave Rat. This is something that patrols in a wide area in the City of the Threads, but if you go to this particular location, you can basically just wait for one to come running past. Again, having a target macro helps a lot. The last 2 achievements require you to be under the influence of polymorphic translation and are best done together. You can buy the potion of polymorphic translation from the vendor Ceasefire down in the City of Threads here. The achievements called Smelling History and Bookworm both require you to find various lore books around the zone and collect them while under the influence of that potion. Again, Handy Notes does the trick. And that's basically everything that you're able to work on right now until the next patch launches. Once 1107 does come out, we are going to have some new requirements for the brand new I'll Remember You achievement, which awards the Breaks Song, a brand new recolor of the ship mount. A Song of Secrets requires you to do the main storyline, simply just following through the quest line that starts inside the main town in Dorn once the patch drops should see this done. Serenity now is to do all of the weekly quests. Now, the spawn rate of the individual weekly quests isn't super clear because it's been accelerated on the PTR, but from what we understand from Blizzard, it's going to require 6 weeks to get them all, which happens to be the same time it's going to take to rank up the new ring. Excavation Projects requires you to do the 3 main excavation events. These are activated by contributing your new currency, Flame Blessed Iron, to fill a bar. Once you fill the bar, the event is activated, and all you need to do is to head over and kill the rare that spawns. You don't actually need to be a contributor in order to kill the rare. You can just turn up if someone else activates it. And because of that, I do recommend prioritizing this one early on in the new patch when a lot of people are doing it. Clean up on Isle Siren is the equivalent of the Adventurer achievement. The bad news is that this one does require all of the available rares. So hopefully they're not going to be too rare, otherwise it will turn in to be as much of a pain as the Forbidden Reach one was to do. Treasures of the Storm asks you to loot 10 ruined stormed chests. I found quite a few of those in the waters around the coast of the Isle on the PTR. 10 doesn't seem to me to be a very large amount, so hopefully this one will not be as painful as the treasures in the Forgotten Reach were to farm. And finally, Acquire of Citrine requires getting all of the special Citrine gems that you can socket into the new ring. The sources of all of these haven't been fully discovered yet, but I've seen them drop from the main quest lines, world quests, and the excavation events, so I'm not anticipating that this will be too difficult to do. Generally, with things like this, which are player power, Blizzard doesn't want to make them like really annoying because, you know, well, we all complain about that. Overall, I have a suspicion that the new zones meta will be impacted a lot more with RNG than the original ones are, but none of them seem to be quite on the same scale as the Forbidden Reach, so I'm hoping that it will not be quite as painful as that particular zone was to finish. Knowing what they will be is going to help us to prioritize them when the new patch drops, something I do recommend as they're likely to be a lot easier when the patch is current. Anyway, this is what is very likely to end up being part of the War Within meta achievement when we get it towards the end of the expansion. But what about you? Do you think this looks easier to get than those past versions of meta achievements? Or is this something you're still going to just avoid? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you want to support my channel or just to get notified when new videos go live, then do make sure to hit that subscribe button. I have a lot of cool content in the pipeline for the coming weeks. And if you found this video useful or just interesting, then do let me and YouTube know by hitting that like icon. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.